Today we're going to dive into a logic puzzle that's almost 2,000 years old, pulled straight from the ancient text of the Talmud. And trust me, it's this incredible case study in how you can create absolute certainty out of, well, total confusion.
At its core, this whole thing really boils down to a superhuman question. What do you do when a really important promise gets all tangled up in a series of just simple, honest mistakes? I mean, how do you make things right when you can't even remember what right was supposed to be in the first place?
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the promise and the first problem, watch how it just snowballs into a huge mess, and then we'll walk through the amazing logical solution. After that, we'll explore a parable that kind of explains the whole principle, and we'll finish up with this really key distinction about what it even means to fulfill an obligation.
All right, so let's set the scene for this ancient legal puzzle.
It all starts out simply enough. You have a woman who has a religious duty to bring a pair of birds as an offering to the ancient temple. But on top of that, she also makes this voluntary personal promise, a vow, to bring another bird offering.
Okay, so what's absolutely crucial to get here is the difference between these two things. The obligatory offering, that's just a standard requirement, something she has to do. But the vow offering, that's a personal promise she chose to make. And this little distinction, it's going to become the pivot point for the entire puzzle.
And boom, right out of the gate, we hit a snag. She can't remember what she promised. Did she say she'd bring turtle doves, or was it pigeons? This one single moment of forgetfulness, it's the tiny seed from which this giant, complicated tree is about to grow.
As you can probably guess, things are about to get way more complicated. You know how it is. One little mistake often just leads to another, creating this chain reaction of uncertainty.
So the woman, trying to cover all her bases, brings some birds to the temple. But then a second mistake happens. The priest who's doing the ritual, he messes up too. He sacrifices some of the birds in the wrong spots on the altar, which just makes the whole situation even murkier.
And now, the questions just start piling up. We don't know what species she vowed, we don't know what species she actually brought, we have no idea which bird ended up where, and this is the big one, which bird was for the vow and which was for the obligation. It is a state of almost total chaos.
So, how in the world do you solve this? Well, the answer in the Talmud is just a masterclass in logic. It doesn't even try to guess what happened. Instead, it builds a system designed to cover every single possibility. It's brilliant.
Let's start with the simplest case, all right? If she knows she only brought one species of bird, say only pigeons, she needs 5 new birds. 4 of them are to cover her vow. That means a pair of turtle doves and a pair of pigeons, just in case. And 1 more to replace the mixed-up obligatory offering.
Now, let's add another layer of confusion. What if she brought 2 different species to begin with? Well, the number climbs to 6. She still needs those 4 birds for the vow, but now she needs 2 for the obligation, 1 of each species, just to guarantee the replacement is correct.
And finally, we get to the ultimate scenario. This is the big one. The case of total confusion, where both the woman and the priest have forgotten pretty much everything. And here, the solution requires bringing 7 birds. And that number 7, it's not arbitrary at all. It's the product of pure cold logic.
So how do we get to 7? Let's break it down. First, you bring 4 birds for the vow. That's 2 of each species to guarantee you've covered whatever the original promise was. Second, you bring 2 birds for the obligatory offering, 1 of each species, to make sure you have a valid replacement. And third, you bring 1 final sin offering, just in case the priest's mistake invalidated the whole ritual to begin with. See? Every single possibility is now covered.
As you can see in this table, it's a really clear pattern. The more uncertainty you have, the more birds you need to create absolute certainty. It's a direct, almost mathematical relationship between confusion and its solution.
But this isn't just about counting birds. The ancient text gives us this beautiful and really memorable parable to help us understand the deep principle that's at work here.
One of the sages, Rabbi Yehoshua, he sums up the whole situation with this kind of mysterious saying. When a sheep is alive, it makes 1 sound, baa. But when it's dead, its body can be used to make 7 different sounds. Its horns become trumpets, its bones become flutes, its skin a drum. You get the idea.
So what on earth does a musical sheep have to do with forgotten bird offerings? Well, it's actually a really powerful metaphor for what happened to the woman's vow.
Think about it. The original vow was like that living sheep. It was one single, clear, simple thing. It had 1 sound. But once that vow was killed by forgetfulness and error, that single obligation just shattered. It's splintered into 7 different potential duties that all have to be dealt with to put the whole thing to rest. Just like the sheep's single body can produce 7 distinct sounds. It's this incredibly poetic way of explaining how uncertainty just multiplies complexity.
Now we've reached what I think is the most nuanced part of this whole thing, a final legal point that really shows you the depth of this way of thinking.
So here's this fascinating distinction. The text explains that even if one of the birds was sacrificed incorrectly, it can still legally be considered a valid offering. Now what that means is the woman wouldn't get penalized for, say, misusing sacred property. But, and this is the whole point, it does not mean her personal obligation, her promise, has been fulfilled.
And this really gets to the heart of it. Achieving some technical, legal status isn't the same thing as fulfilling a personal commitment. The whole system makes a distinction between just avoiding a penalty and truly satisfying the original intent of the vow. And that's why all those extra birds are necessary to make sure that the personal promise is honored beyond any shadow of a doubt.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about, doesn't it? A system that is this obsessed with covering every logical possibility, that demands such careful, specific actions to fix a simple failure of memory. Is it ultimately more concerned with what was in the person's heart, their original intention, or with the concrete, physical actions needed to truly make things right?